everyone back to the tables here for some debate. I managed to steal 15 minutes from your lunch, by the way. But I hope that you find this still interesting. So can I invite everyone over to the tables? Because obviously there's a lot more to know. And we will never manage in these 15 minutes. But anyway, we can still have a go. At least I will be curious to hear from the other countries here present at the table. Because you introduced the technological solutions, but we didn't hear anything about demand building or financial arrangements or regulations. Can you tell us a bit more about what's going on in Latvia, Estonia and Czechoslovakia on that field? Please pick up the microphone if you have something to tell. We didn't rehearse this, so...
So far in Latvia, it's possible to get 50% funding for retrofitting. So it's maximum scale. So the higher retrofitting level, higher savings, better co-financing. But anyway, it's not very attractive somehow in Latvia so far, at least a bigger city. In smaller city, they're much more efficient. I know they can get the final agreement because you need to 50% plus one votes to be approved the retrofitting project, to approve retrofitting project. That is why the smaller costs, smaller costs, the better probability of all inhabitants will vote for the retrofitting. So.
And everyone cheering to take on these projects, housing associations, private house owners, are they queuing up?
We don't have such a, like maybe here in the Netherlands, like a specific housing association. So each house belongs to all apartment owners. Mm-hmm. So if there are like 4 apartments, like in our case, there are 4 owners of this house. So it means if you would like to take any decision, you need to 50%, 51% for voting. And the banks would be much more happy if there will be 75 or 80% voted for retrofitting. So to get the loan.
Okay. Well, thank you.
In Estonia, we very actively renovate current living stock. We have also situation with ownership similar to Latvia, that the majority of apartment buildings are owned by apartment owners. So if there are 60 apartments, it means 60 owners who decide how to do it.
Yeah.
And currently we are renovating like 200 to 300 buildings per year. But to improve the living stock, we need the much more renovation volume. And to increase renovation volume, we really need the next step technology for this, because with the current technology, we cannot improve the renovation volume. With increasing of number of buildings, we just increase the price, because when there is higher demand, the price will be increased. And we really need the new technology, and I hope that More Connect is the future for renovation.
Okay, thank you. And Czechoslovakia, what?
Okay. In the Czech Republic, we got the same problem with the ownership as was described, because also we have like each flat has different owner mostly. Mm-hmm. So when you want to renovate the whole building, then it comes first to the social problem, how to find a solution. Then it can be subsidized by the government. Also, when you refurbish the house, you can get the money for that. But the problem is the reaching the net zero, because the active part, for example, photovoltaics, which you need to install, it's not easy in our country to put there enough power which we need for the net zero, because of the regulation, so that we cannot connect enough of PV to the net. So then we need to go for the batteries and stuff like that. That makes the project more costly. So that and in Slovakia it would be the same probably.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I have a lot of questions, but I guess you have too. So can I invite anyone for a question?
Yes. Do I assume correctly that a key element in making this kind of mass renovation a success is to have some archetype building types that are very similar, so you can use a standardized approach?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because everybody looks at these buildings and think they need the same solution. In practice, once you have your 3D scanned factory setup, etc., we see that if it's not too complicated, if you don't have too complicated facades, you will find your way. So in all the countries we go to, there is this first, okay, we need to visualize the fact that the building stock is homogeneous. So there's always this kind of 70s or 80s typology, which is the example. But from a technology perspective, it's not needed. That's my perception.
Yeah, what we have observed in Latvia, we have a lot of typical buildings built in Soviet times. So there are maybe 5-6 different series of buildings. But anyway, during this 3D scanning on several buildings, we see the difference which affects the, construction retrofitting technology. So there's vertical deviations, windows placed at the different angles. So there are such minor things that anyway should be adapted as a factory. So it wouldn't be like a typical setup for each house. And also making the energy audits, also I figure out that there are 10 similar buildings, but when you get in, you can see completely different pictures, different technical conditions, different systems, so something was renovated, something not renovated, and it could be a problem.
Yes, I would like to add that technology should be so flexible that coming from one building to another or from one country to another, the technology should be changeable, because in cold climate we have different energy conditions comparing to Central Europe.
Okay. And is there any difference between the kind of questions you get for facade panels, for example, from private house owners and housing associations?
From private owners, the private owner market is a difficult market. The homes are, I think, too different to renovate it from fabrication. But we also have customers. There are private customers like big companies. They have a lot of houses, not social house companies, but private owners for office buildings, for example, and they change it into office homes. So most of the projects we can do in a fabrication. That's no problem, I think.
Okay. Some more questions from... Ooh!
Where was it? Oh.
Some exercise.
Yeah.
This is Mohammed from ULG, Belgium. Having a question regarding the mass-produced zero-energy retrofit facades or buildings. Do you usually consider the post-occupancy measurements? How do you get the feedback of the performance of the renovated buildings?
First answer from the Netherlands, it's the builder who builds it normally also has a maintenance contract and needs to report yearly how the performance of that home is and kind of what is the tenant behavior and what is the building behavior. So all these buildings are monitored and they all kind of generate that data. So that's the technical part. What we see is that where you kind of used to have rebound effects when you change, for example, to gas to more efficient gas boilers, and all of a sudden more water came out of your shower head. You know, that you see that people actually start using more energy. What we've seen here is that there is a net zero target, and all these homeowners, they either have to pay a bill or they don't pay a bill, and they all try to not pay a bill. So what we've seen is there's a kind of people really take the challenge to become net zero if you give them the right information.
One more question from the hall.
Yep. Thank you, Fred Sanders, Delft University.
I recognize you.
I'm very interested what those 5 men can learn from each other, from all those different countries. Finding out innovations separately.
Good question. Let's find out. Jasper, can you learn anything? Or do you know
first of all,
everything?
what I learned is that in these countries, they already made a start. So let's say what I would call the activation stage is already there, and they even made their first project. So that's the reason why we as Energiesprong didn't target those countries yet, because we thought it was too complicated from a building stock perspective, because they are co-owned, and it was too complicated from a cost price perspective, because there are many cheap other options. But it's obviously, at least it is possible. So that's one thing I learned. The other thing I learned, and I think that's what we should dive in a bit deeper, is the cost of this whole system is leading in the success. For sure, in the private homeowner market, this whole package needs to go in the Netherlands under 45,000 euros, and then people can actually, buy it within their mortgage. The panel cost I just saw at one of the presentations is already lower than the lowest we have. So there might be an option, to just see if we could kickstart the panel manufacturing industry in one of those countries, to bring it to the Netherlands, and once you develop, that market, for panels there, they will be able to tune into the local market later on. So these are my learnings.
So maybe what we have learned in Latvia, so first of all, what would be the precision of necessary 3D scanning and 3D BIM model, what technique should be used, because otherwise the panels are produced, so it could be overlap with all this existing communication in the windows, so how to choose a proper design techniques. And later on, what our builder, for the first time in Latvia, have renovated full building, what would be the machinery for this? Because in our case, I forgot to mention, we have all the panels. First panel was mounted with some slight inclination up to 1 to 3 millimeters. And afterwards, when we get the final panel, you have also overlap. So also it's due to the incorrect construction technology was chosen. So also this new products, laser scanning, laser level should be adapted for the use by the construction companies.
Yeah, for us it's also the process which included the integration design and manufacturing. We could do, or our partners could do, the things in each step separately, but the savings, either the cost or energy, comes from the integrated design, and this was something which we have learned, and we could observe how the other partners are going into the process and how they can manage that, and that was for us very important. And also we have separated the different buildings in the start of the project, so that the pilot buildings are different. And for example, in the Czech Republic, we got many of the buildings which are similar to the Estonian pilot buildings. And if we decide to renovate also those buildings, we can just see how they did it in Estonia and do it. So this was also something what we saw and learned in the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
We also in Estonia learned a lot about the technology, and the company who conducted the construction, he has a very good experience. And one thing that we learned, and it's very important with prefabricated renovation, is that the weather protection before installation is very important. If there is raining and elements become wet, it could be serious moisture problem or mold problem. So it's needed to take the moisture safety issues really very carefully.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I think very interesting. There are many more questions to be posed, I guess. I hope all the gentlemen are here for lunch anyway, and most of you probably for the day. But you are leaving some point? He's leaving after lunch, so if you have an important question for Jasper, just go hunt him during lunch. Obviously, learning is also a very important theme of today. We like to learn, and we learned a lot the last years with implementing the Energiesprong. It was really an example of the triple helix, I think, into action. with companies, with the government, with research. And I think it's good that we now made a step towards a European level to learn between countries. And we need much more for that, because the challenge is not only becoming energy neutral, but also to become circular in 2050. So not an extra challenge. But for now, we go to lunch because life goes on.